Twins left. Check zone. Check zone. All right, we're going to get Brown, 570, wide curl on 2.
4-3 stack, slant strong. Open cannon, Mike Pop.
Hello and welcome to In the Huddle. I'm your host, JT Thomas, broadcasting live from Sabre Station. I'm here every Wednesday from 6 to 7. If you don't catch me here, make sure you check me out at thedpost.com. Joining me this week, we got my good friend Ed Green, 1994 to 1998, and my senior on the staff right now, my friend Alex Shook, 1987 to 1991, and my good friend, I forgot your name. No, I didn't. Hey, this is Gary Thompson. Gary and I were both from Florida. Gary Thompson played 1995 to 1999. 1999. See, I've been gone a week and it's just getting back into the groove. So I spent some time on my birthday and running around a little bit, and Gary hosted the show, but now I'm back and I'm ready to go. Guys, let's get ready to break the huddle.
Let's do it.
Guys, I wasn't here last week, and I didn't get an opportunity to talk about that Baylor game. You guys held it down. It seemed very, very exciting watching you guys. But I tell you guys, it was very hurtful to watch us get beat 62, it was 37. What was the score? 62-38.
Too much to too little.
Yeah, too much to too little. That's
That
exactly
is way too much. But let's go ahead and back up and talk about it a little bit, Ed. Starting the game off, we exchanged touchdowns. They scored in 4 plays. We scored in 3 plays.
Right.
What happened after that?
Well, just like you said, they came out gunning and got a score, and we answered back in Mountaineer fashion. After that, things started to decline. You know, in the beginning of the game, during the kickoff, we saw a team that believed. And then I think they kind of got a little bit starstruck. They started second guessing, they started questioning. So you could tell that they started to slowly get out of their comfort zone. And that's what I saw. And then things started to pull away. Again, there were some bright spots in that game. We put up a phenomenal amount of yardage, but again, too little. But it just boiled down to, I believe it's just a confidence thing. It's not a talent thing. I think we're talented enough. Again, going back a couple weeks against, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, those are games that I felt like we should have won. And I really felt that we should have beat them as well.
Right. Alex, what we got? I mean, you wasn't here last week. I wasn't here last week.
I was in Florida. I was vacationing last week myself, but I did watch the game on TV, and Baylor's doing that to a lot of teams. That wide receiver they have is absolutely fantastic. Actually, it's not just one. They've got 3 or 4 guys that are all going to play on Sundays in the NFL, and the Coleman guy, we didn't have any answer for him. We didn't have any answer for any of them. Obviously, they scored 62 points. So, I think we can put away the notion of the no-fly zone and maybe just try and keep the guys in front of us and not let them beat us for touchdowns to the tune of 62 points this week, because we're going to have big challenges tomorrow night as well. But, this is a fantastic Baylor team. They're as good as anybody I've seen on offense, I think, in the entire country. And I think they score 60 games as a regular matter. It's not something unusual. It's just especially painful to have it happen to a Mountaineer defense that we thought was going to be a lot better than that.
Yeah.
Right. Gary, you went over it last week. I mean, you're very adamant about the play in terms of how the Mountaineers perform. What was the difference in terms of what we were seeing throughout the season until the Baylor game and this particular game? From last year having a tight game to, for the most part, getting blown out.
I think it's just we stopped competing. And unfortunately, that's not something that you want to see, because as we've talked about, Mountaineers always love to fight. We like to be in the game. We like it to be a hard-nosed game. It'd be a different story if we were here talking about how hard we were hitting, how the guys were at it and surrounding the ball. But we had a lot of guys playing one-on-one. A lot of those long passes were guys just running wide open.
Yeah.
It looked easy. And I think that, I give it to Baylor because they do have a lot of depth. They do have a lot of offensive power. But we still want to be able to compete, and we just didn't do that very well last week.
Guys, I wasn't here, and I have a lot to talk about, in terms of when I first watched the game, for the most part, they scored, we scored. There was no reason for me not to believe that we could have been successful in this outing against Baylor. The thing that hurt me for the most part, as you watched the game, we rushed for 182 yards, they rushed for 304. When the team is beating you by that, margin in the rushing game, I mean, it makes it very difficult. And you have to put that blame on the defense, you know. You got to be able to stop the run. And I guess the person we didn't account for was the quarterback.
Seth Russell.
Seth Russell. We just could not account for the guy. I mean, he's a big target.
Is he a freshman?
No, I don't think he's a freshman. I think he's a sophomore.
I hope
I think
not.
he's a sophomore.
Wish he was a senior.
I think he's a freshman or
he's a freshman?
sophomore.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll
Well,
look
a
him
lot
up.
of,
We'll
I think
look him up.
100 of those yards he
But let's
accounted
talk
for.
about what this guy did. I mean, for the most part, I mean, this is a tall, lanky kid. What kept happening once the defense, he outflanked the defense. He got outside on him. This guy running up and down the field, 20, 30 yards,
Yeah.
and he's kind of guy that he's not gonna slide. He wants to run the football when he gets the opportunity, and we just could not contain him. All game long, I thought, why don't we spy this guy? You know, why don't we tag this guy?
Right.
Tell me why we couldn't tag him, Gary.
We couldn't tag him because we weren't ready to hit him. I mean, just the way that we look, I look at the game is that, again, we stopped competing. We were not prepared. Again, I saw a lot of technique issues with our secondary. I don't think that our linebacking core showed up. I don't think the defense showed up altogether. And I think that we may have gotten starstruck or may have looked at all the weapons that Baylor had and thought that how could we compete with them given what we put on the field.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to look at our guys and ask them to compete more, ask more from them to go out there and put it on the line. We have guys that are good athletes, and I am a Mountaineer fan. I'm going to continue to say that our guys can compete with anybody,
Yeah.
but we have to have the confidence to do so. Once you get 300 yards rushing, once you get the quarterback running on you, you got a guy that's doing he's destroying college football, and Coleman. I think when you see those guys score a couple times, get a couple runs, it destroys your confidence. And, I'm not sure how you build that back up in the middle of a game, but, someone needs to be a leader out there. And I really do think that as much as I would like to think that it doesn't fall on one person, we miss Carl Joseph a whole lot. And I think that leadership is what we're missing the most.
I agree with you. I just want to clear it up in terms of so the fans know what I'm talking about. When I say tag a guy, what typically happens is when a quarterback is unmanageable and he starts running the ball outside, you kind of tag him with a linebacker, so somebody knows to stay with this guy, keep their eyes on this guy. However, now I make that sound easier than what it really is. I mean, there's a lot going on nowadays. I mean, that was probably easy for me to say running a 4-3 defense, and nobody was throwing the football as much as guys are doing now. But when I say that, my thought and hopes is that we find some way to contain these guys. And what happens, and you tell me if I'm wrong, Ed, when you got that 3-3 look, 3-3-5 look, once you seal that end or that end gets sucked inside, or he comes upfield, he's outflanked,
right.
and anybody can beat him then,
Right.
So we got to find a way to fix this. You pay a price when you have your quarterback running the football.
Yeah.
Those guys are not typically runners. The best thing for them to do is when they get out in that field is slide, and when you run haphazardly, you take those shots. I mean, oftentimes you end up paying for it with some sort of injury. But let me talk about this guy. Not only was he good in running the ball, he passed for 389 yards. Total offense for Baylor, as you guys probably knew and talked about last week, 693 yards of total offense. That's a lot of.
They can start converting that's over half a mile.
Yeah, that is
Getting
insane.
close.
Right, just imagine that, fans. 693 yards of total offense in the football game. Nearly 700 yards of total offense. You're talking about a lot of football being played. And to boot, we had the ball possession-wise longer than they did.
Yeah, that's right.
So obviously, Baylor thought about what went on last year here in Morgantown. When they had the opportunity to expose us, they did. And again, this doesn't tell me, or I don't feel bad in terms of what level our guys competed at. As you mentioned, Alan, this was a better team that day. And we've seen games like that. We've been a part of games like that. So I wanted to, because you guys went over Baylor so much, Gary, do you remember a game where you felt like, man, we just came through a tough one. We got to get ourselves up. What game was it for you that changed, or what a turning point of your season in terms of getting the guys prepared to move on?
Well, I think there's several games that I was a part of. Unfortunately, we didn't get the season turned around some of those years. I can remember '96, we lost the game to Miami. I think we were 6-0, 7-0 at that point. The last 10 seconds of the game, they come in and they block a punt against us, and that changed our season. Unfortunately, we had great leadership on that team, though. We had, at least from the secondary guys that I sat in with, we had Van Washington, Chuck Emanuel. Those guys were pressing the team hard to try to come in and to move forward. But unfortunately, I think we dropped like the last 2 of 3, and it just didn't go well the rest of the season. 98, I believe we had a hard loss to the Mike Vick team down here in Virginia Tech. Sort of the same situation. So I've been a part of those difficult losses, but what you have is the team coming together and saying, this is what we need to do as a team. This is what we have to do as a unit. And so although I don't want to blame the players, you're the ones on the field. Someone has to take leadership. Someone has to take responsibility for how bad you lost, even if it is individually where I get on the field and I say, you know what, this team is obviously going to beat us today. I'm not going to get beat anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get taken advantage of. I'm going to be able to hold my head high when I walk back in the locker room and compete with these guys. And again, that was the frustrating part for me. There was no one competing. The team stopped competing.
Guys, with that, I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to get right back to those questions because I really want to hear from the whole panel what was the changing moment in a season that seems similar to what we got going on. But right now, I want to remind everybody that we're here every week. We're here at Saberton Station. We're here from 6 to 7. Come on down because we got a lot going on. We got these trivia questions and we do all sort of stuff. And I got a good trivia question for you today. And if you answer this right, you get one of these cozies. We give them out every week. In fact, if you're really good, we'll probably give them out to everybody. You never know. But this is my question. Pay very close attention. When I do these, I like to give a few options. Make sure you raise your hand so we can get the mic over to you so you can answer the question. Here we go. Listen very question. This is a very hard question. What days does the In the Huddle show air? Monday, Thursday, or Wednesday? I got a hand over here. What days does it air?
It airs on Thursday.
What'd you say?
Thursday.
You are absolutely correct. You get a cozy. Yes. See, I was thinking people weren't paying attention because we're shooting it live on Wednesday. But just as she said, we're here every Wednesday, but the show will air on Thursdays. So make sure you.
If I can, that's my mother.
That's your mother. Oh!
And she's here visiting in town, and
Absolutely.
we're going to dinner tonight, and it's her birthday, October 28th.
Happy birthday!
My wife and mother-in-law with her.
That is absolutely. I tell you what, you remind me. In fact, I'm gonna probably get some points because my mother-in-law's birthday is today, so I can say happy birthday to my mother-in-law.
And Gary, she asked me if Gary Tompkins was going to be on the show today because it's her favorite member of In the Huddle.
I think he's lying, but still, I'll take it. I'll take it.
You would get all kind of stuff, and we start giving you all sort of stuff here in a little bit. But again, guys, I want to remind you, we're here every Wednesday from 6 to 7 here at Saberton Station. Make sure you come down and check us out. Guys, we'll get right back into it. As I mentioned, I want to hear from you in regard to how, have you gone through some adversity? Have you been a part of the team where we've gone through adversity and we had to regroup and get back on the bike?
I think my biggest experience had to deal with, it was after our undefeated season as I came in as a redshirt freshman. That was a pretty magical season. We ran the table. We went 11-0 in the Big East, and what I thought was some pretty stiff competition. The first thing that we really, I see the team kind of look down a little bit was in the second half of the Boston College game, which was the final game of that regular season. We spent so much time and energy staying up so long from the beginning of that season to the end of the season. We saw the energy start to go, and guys started to not believe too much. Like, okay, maybe this one is the one that we're going to lose. And you could see it and you could feel it, not only amongst the players, but even the coaching staff on the sideline. But then Ed Hill did one thing that changed everything. It changed everything, and it was like a charge back into the team. And then we went on to win that game. But then that following season, we had a rough season for us. You know, we ended up going to kickoff classic, playing Nebraska, and that hurt a lot. We just did not show up at that game. You know, we were running an option against the defense that saw the best option ever executed in football, and then we started to lose some games back to back, and it was I wouldn't say it was during the Rutgers game, but after the Rutgers game, everyone said that's enough.
Right.
That's enough. We are better than that.
Right.
And then things started to turn around.
Absolutely.
But I believe that's what it takes. It takes that moment. You talk a little bit about having a monkey on your back. Every time that you lose, that monkey gets heavier and heavier. But at some point in time, you got to decide, if the monkey's going to wrestle you or you going to wrestle the monkey. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what our team needs to do at this point.
Right, I agree. But you got Alex.
That TCU is more like a gorilla than a monkey. It's a tough game to get healthy it's coming back to play TCU on the road at night. But
I agree.
Yeah, you don't want the prior game to beat you twice. And that's an old adage. They always say that. And my big experience with that was probably in 1989. We were up 31-9 against Pitt. We were ranked in the top 10. At the time, probably 7, 8, or 9, something like that. And Pitt was pretty highly ranked as well. And they were able to come back and score like 22 unanswered points, kicked a field goal as time was running out in the fourth quarter to tie the game 31-31. And that was clearly a loss for us. And it really sank. We were coming off a national championship run the year before, and probably were equally as talented because Major was just doing whatever he wanted to do on the field. And we came out and played flat against the Virginia Tech team the next week and let an inferior Virginia Tech team beat us 12-10 at home, and they danced on our WV and tore banners off of the walls and just had a great old time. So I'll forever hate Virginia Tech. I hated them before that and hated them even more after it. But you can't let that bad game beat you twice. And I worry about these guys because we don't have anybody to get well against. We're going to have to play way above our heads, I think, to be able to win this game tomorrow.
Right. And guys, why I asked this question, because I think that, it's just relevant in terms of what we have to do. I want to share my experience, and it's right along with you, Ed. I came in a year after that 93 team, 94. As Ed mentioned, we started off the season 1-4. 1-4. We beat Ball State. And then we lost, we started off losing against Nebraska. But I'll tell you the turning point in the game that I remember where things just changed for us. We were heading out to Missouri. We played Missouri at Missouri, and I remember our guys before that game. There was a running back. He was 260 pounds, big guy. We were having trouble. Kentar Barber was playing fullback for us, and we had to have him practice at running back because the guy that we were going to tackle at the running back position was about 260 pounds. And I remember we were struggling that game, and I remember halftime we had made a commitment to get it together. And I remember a local guy, David Mayfield from Morgantown High. I remember this running back bust through the line. This 260-pound back comes smashing through the line, and Dave Mayfield, 179, 180, if that,
maybe,
comes up and just lights this guy up. Bam! And lights just cut on for everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This was, again, so I wanted to articulate that to you, the fans, to everybody, to say, listen, when you think we're down, those guys are very resilient. All right, when they get it together and make a decision to get it together, they can do it. They can do it against any team. And keep in mind, this still is a young team. We got a receiver that's a freshman. One's a redshirt freshman, the other's a freshman.
Yeah.
We got a quarterback who's only seen one. This is his first full year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So guys and fans, don't be sitting out there pouting. This is Mountaineer football. We can figure this thing out. So I wanted to make sure we were able to share those stories so people know, listen, these guys ain't sitting back here licking their wounds. Right. They're getting ready for the next opponent, and then that next opponent is TCU. And as you mentioned, that's a big pill to swallow coming. Well, as we go to TCU this upcoming week. So again, I just wanted to remind everybody, guys, this is football. This is what we do. We'll continue to do it. To keep moving forward, I'll turn that right on into TCU. We'll talk about TCU. They come in with 7-0. Are they 7-0? 6-0.
6-0.
6-0. And number 3, right? They're number 3. They're 5. I saw one poll, they were like 3-2. They're 5. Okay. With them coming in the top 5 in the country, all right? The Mountaineers got to go see them. How do we fare, Ed?
I think we fare well, and don't think that because TCU is sitting at the number 5 position and they're undefeated that they're going to take us lightly. Everybody in our conference knows that the Mountaineer football team is dangerous, and they don't know exactly when they're going to turn it around. It could be their team, it could be the next week. TCU's got to be very concerned because, against, they watched the film just like we did against OSU and even Baylor. They saw a team that wasn't playing up to their potential. Now they got to be, if I was the coaching staff, I would say you guys really need to be aware of this because they might turn it on and we can't sit there and act like we got a week off.
Right.
Because I really don't think that's going to happen. Now I said that against Baylor too. Right. All right, but there's the fanatic side of me coming out and the fan side of me coming out a little bit. But to be honest, I really do believe that our team is capable of beating these guys. And this is one of those games that turns your entire season around. And it also makes the conference and the rest of the country take notice and say, you know what, I kind of thought so. Maybe they just need to throw a little oil on the chain and get things going. So I think this little bit of week of rest, this few extra days, I hope they took advantage of it. Everybody's ready to go. I hope the mental game is at an all-time high because that's where I see the failures at. Right. People are unsure, blown coverages. I want to see some tenacity. I want them to start coming out and playing some football.
And let me share with you and with the fans why I think it's very important that we put a lot of energy and a lot of focus on this upcoming opponent. Gary Patterson. Gary Patterson is the difference in that ball club. And when you talk about he's been around the program 15 years, he's 139 and 45. But the difference being, when you think about the difference between conferences and where we are now, when I look back and I look through my notes and I find out, when I realize what this organization has been able to do, and I think we kind of need to fit that same kind of mold. Started in Conference USA, 2002. They competed for the championship 3 times. 3 times they won the championship 3 times. And in the Big 12, they won the Big 12 last season. They have 6 conference championships. So this team has learned how to play ball games. So my question to you, Alex, are they beatable?
Well, I don't know. That's a great question. Yeah, of course they're beatable. I just don't know that we're going to beat them.
Right.
I think the difference between them and Baylor, there's a lot of similarities. I mean, to start with, their quarterback's a fantastic athlete, a fantastic runner, a guy that hurt us last year and hurt us as a wide receiver the year before that. They've got world-class speed, the Dotson guy on the outside. But I think the difference between them and Baylor is that they don't have the defensive guys that Baylor has, that their weakness is on defense, and teams have been able to score on them. Texas Tech really took them to the wire and probably should have beat them. I don't know that we have the scoring capabilities of Texas Tech, but if we have to get into a shootout with a team, I think we have a better chance of scoring with this TCU team than we did maybe the Baylor squad before that, because Baylor had a little bit more ammo on defense. So, if we can get it going a little bit on defense, they have maybe a little bit of an off night. It can happen to anybody. Who knows? They say any given Sunday, any given Thursday night.
Absolutely.
I always give us a puncher's chance going into these games, and we seem like we're improving a little bit on offense incrementally. If you look at it closely.
Absolutely.
You never know. We slow the game down a little bit, don't turn it over, and score some points. Get one more stop than they do. It could be interesting.
And that's the key. So I went back and I looked at the scores in terms of when they started on the season, Gary, Minnesota. They squeaked out of Minnesota in that first half. Minnesota played right along with them. It didn't look like the team that was supposed to win the Big 12, who was supposed to be in the football championship. Then, as you just mentioned, Texas Tech. They won 55-52 and won that game in the last minutes. And then K-State. They snuck out of K-State with a 52-45 win, and then Iowa State, they beat Iowa State 45-21. So that tells me that we could potentially make this an upset. I mean, we really can. There's a lot of things that has to happen But I go in this game believing more so now than I ever have, because this tells me, in watching those other scores, that this team can be beat. Gary, what do you think?
This tells me something also. This tells me that this team has found a way to win, despite how close the game is, despite the level of competition. They have found ways to win. And so that is a dangerous thing also. Should we have hope for our team winning? Of course, because when you look at 471 yards total offense against Baylor last week, a 100-yard rusher in Smallwood. We also had our quarterback, for the first time, I think we only had one turnover in the game. So that's something else that we can build on that was positive for our team. We had special team player of the week. You know, so we have a lot that we can build on that we know that was great. Honestly, any team would take almost 500 yards total offense. So that's not something that I'm going to look at and just pass over. But what's going to happen in this game? We do have some hope for putting up big numbers because their defense is slightly weaker than Baylor's. But it's all going to come down to pride and commitment. And what I mean by pride is when you lose a game like you lost last week, I tend to not want to talk about other teams, and that's the player in me. I always felt like I don't care what the other team is doing. If I prepare to be the best me, your best player is not going to be better than I am. So I'm going to prepare myself to be the best me that I can be, the best, to have the best week of practice that I can have, to do all I can to learn the scheme, learn some of the tendencies, and that's what I feel like this team should do. Whatever we can do to be smart, whatever we can do to make sure that we're in the fight and that we're competing, it gives us a chance to beat TCU.
Gary, you mentioned something in terms of this team is finding a way to win. They are, and that way to win is Trayvon Boykins, Heisman hopeful.
Yeah.
The kid has just been playing amazingly. He has a young man, Josh Dotson, as you mentioned, top receiver. That's his go-to guy. We found a way to stop those two guys. We can find ourselves on the front side of this game. But guys, let me break again and get back into our trivia. Again, I want to remind you, we're here every Wednesday from 6 to 7. And if you don't catch me here, make sure you check me out on thedpost.com. Check it out. I need to know, this is my other trivia question, play very close attention. You have to pay close attention in this one. How long was Shelton Gibson's kickoff return for a touchdown? I'll give you some hints. It was either 81 yards, 120 yards, or 100 yards. And we got a hand up.
100 yards.
100 yards, sir. You are correct. And I tell you, you've been studying our tapes because you started winning too much. You come here every week and you do an outstanding job. Certainly appreciate you coming out. Sir, you're absolutely right. You'll get a cozy. And we got these little football things. We got these footballs. Can you catch? You sure? All right, here we go.
Coming.
Oh, let's recruit this guy. Let's get him signed up. That's the second deep pass. I might go up a quarterback. That's the second time I've thrown a deep pass.
Them days long gone.
They passed me up. That is awesome. Guys, again, I just want to remind you to have this type of fun. You got to come down to Suburban Station. You got to be here. Saberton Station. You got to be here every Wednesday from 6 to 7. If you don't catch me, make sure you check me out at thedpost.com. And if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and send them into InTheHuddle at thedpost.com. Again, send those questions into InTheHuddle at thedpost.com. Again, guys, I want to get back into TCU and talk about the Heisman candidate, Trayvon Boykins. The guy is playing lights out. I mean, he's a top contender for the Heisman candidate award right now. Ed, is he stoppable? Can we put some hats on this guy?
Well, if we want to win, we're going to have to. Is he stoppable? Yes. How do we stop him? I don't know. But I do know that it's not gonna happen without these guys flying around and trying to make some big plays. Again, I don't know too much about what our scheme's going to be this week. I do know in the last couple weeks we've seen some major holes in our defense, some issues, some missed assignments. I just hope this extra time allowed them to get a little bit more academic and to minimize those mistakes. Again, it's going to come down to playing a really clean football, no mistakes, no missed assignments. That's how you beat that guy. You got to be able to do that, and pressure. Got to have tons of pressure. We got to be able to take the fight to them. If we're fighting on our heels this game, or even going into the first half, then we're in for another battle.
Let me share something, Alex, before I let you. I want to share some stats with you. Trayvon Boykins, 25 touchdowns, 360 yards passing, average over 2,500 passing yards. Josh Dotson, 12 TDs, averaging 153 yards per catch, 1,100 yards this year so far. And this one kid, they say is the fastest kid in college football. That's Lispy, the fastest kid in college football. That's what we're up against this upcoming week. But as I said, Alex, I think we have an opportunity. They're not playing well on defense. How do we beat this team with all those guys?
Well, we have to play very disciplined up front. The pass rushers got to stay in their passing lane. You get undisciplined, run past the guy. This boy can take it 80 yards to the house just
Easy.
like that. I mean, he can go coast to coast on running the ball. So keep him in front of us, make him throw the ball, keep those receivers in front of us, tackle when we get to the quarterback, get him on the ground, tackle those receivers. Got to play heads and shoulders better than what we played last week against Baylor, because this team is every bit as potent on offense as Baylor is.
Yeah.
And to be able to score some, and we have the ball, control it, keep the chains moving, keep the other team on the sideline, their offensive team on the sideline, and score some points. Disciplined, fundamental, sound football is going to have to play almost a perfect game to be able to beat a team like this on the road.
Right, guys, I've talked a lot about everybody else and have limited information on the Mountaineers. Guys, I don't feel too bad about our guys. Skylar Hard, we went back to Texas. He certainly wanted a better outing than he had, but he didn't do too bad. We put up a lot of points. We put a lot of yards.
Yeah, a lot of yards.
And again, I just think the kid is just slowly but surely finding his way. What does Skylar Howard have to do in terms of getting better this week? We're going back to Texas, so obviously he's going to be back in his backyard, and hopefully he doesn't get overexcited and take this game one play at a time. What does Skylar Howard have to do specifically to have a better game this week?
I think he needs to play his reads, play his game when he has the opportunity to pick up a first down, run the ball. He gave up a couple times I thought where he had a nice run in front of him and he tried to force the ball into coverage. So, take what the defense gives you, protect the football. He's making steps. I think he's making strides. So, let's hope that he can continue that maturation and that progression against a defense that's shown some vulnerability that can be scored on.
Right. Now, Gary, to me, there's one area that I was a little confused on. And as a former quarterback, I know it's tempting. But we missed out on a couple fourth down conversions where we should have possibly thrown short routes when we went deep.
Right.
We got one picked off, and it was just challenging for him to make the right decision on those fourth down conversions. What does he have to do in terms of making the right decisions against a defense that know he's trying to make something big when happen when he's behind? What does he have to do?
Well, at this point, I don't think Skylar can afford to be the guy that says, I need to get hit in order to play well. I need to get hit to get ready. I think what has to happen is he has to take ownership of our team. He has to, at least this week, I hope, he's went to the team and decided to take leadership and take ownership of the team. He has to do what Alex said. He has to go into the game. He has to play his keys, make sure he makes the right reads, and then deliver the football with confidence. He's going back to Texas, so that should be a plus for us because he's been there once. He's back home. He knows what it feels like. He doesn't have to play for his mom anymore.
Right.
He doesn't have to excite his high school girlfriend. He doesn't have to do anything like that. He just has to go out there and play and be a good football player. And like I know, it comes to a point where you get that feeling that just says, you know what, I'm just going to be me. I'm going to be the JT I know how to be. I'm going to be the Gary I know how to be. And I'm going to go ahead and be a good football player. And I think if he takes ownership of his, recognizing that he's the leader of that offense and that he should, in part, leader of that team, just by nature being the quarterback, if he does that, then he should play a good game. He should do well.
And I agree with that. I mean, right now we actually have more weapons with this new kid, David Steels. David Seals. The kid comes off. They burn his red shirt, goes out, scores a touchdown. He said he's going to be a quarterback, but he's playing right now. So right now, I see in the lineup, we got Sheldon Gibson, we got Javon Durant. Now we have David Seals. More weapons on the field for Skyler. So hopefully he takes advantage of that and spread the ball a little bit around. And you know, one thing y'all mentioned on the show is my boot and waggle.
Yes.
We scored with the boot and waggle, which gave him more options. Yeah. They got to be able to utilize that and hit every player. Ed, talk to me about this kid, David Seals. Is he the real deal?
I think he is. He's young. You know, a lot of times for a coach to have somebody burn their red shirt, that means they're ready to play, and they can use them right now. So that means that he really has, you know, when I say he, when I'm talking about our head coach, I think he has some plans to integrate him and integrate him quickly. We need a jolt somewhere on that offense. Again, we've been putting up decent numbers, but we need a little bit more firepower, and I think that's going to bring it. Now, if I was TCU, I'd be concerned about that, because this young man has displayed some speed, he's got some power, and he's not afraid to play at the 1A level. So I think that's going to be a good thing. I think we'll look for some big things to happen this week with him, at least some definite opportunities. You know, talk a little bit about Skyler Howard. I think last week was a better showing for him, for sure, and I agree what everybody was saying. I just like to see him go back to weeks 1, 2, and 3. He showed a whole lot of generalship. He showed a lot of leadership, and he was fired up. He was fired. You can see him fired up in the huddle. You can see him fired up on the sideline. I'm not seeing that anymore. Right. So is the confidence gone out the window? I'm not quite sure. I think he just might be overthinking. I think we need to get back to basics. But I think this week, I think you know, on offense, I think we're going to see we might see some more of that boot and waggle. Maybe the coach is watching the show. Right.
I'm telling you, I've called for that boot and waggle, and every time we've done it, we've scored on it. We didn't just make first downs. Remember that, Coach? We scored on the boot and waggle, and I talk about it every week. Every time we've done it, we've scored. And guys, I'll tell you why I think, again, I played quarterback, right? The challenge is for Skyler, he's under 6 foot tall. Right. He's under 6 foot tall. He is throwing in between lanes right now. He has to wait for the lane to open up and see his guy. You pointed out in the earlier the season, hitting that drag route, that dig route. You know, he's been missing that because he's throwing in windows. Mm-hmm. The best way to combat that, get that kid outside, give him some options. Mm-hmm. Bring that tight end across the field. Give him some option, either run or pass. Right. If we do that, I just see better things happen for us. I certainly ain't paid the big bucks to make me but I'm a money quarterback. So again, the boot and waggle for me is the way to go. But let me get back to our defense because Alex, I think you pointed out correctly when you and I started. I almost call this defense the second coming. And it's just been very tough for us. But I will say this: Nick Kedakowski has done a decent job at that linebacker spot. Jared Barber's back. Nick has really shown that he's a leader on that football team. In fact, I wish he was a little more vocal and kind of get on those secondary guys so he can get everybody to move in the right direction. But the defense ain't playing really bad. I mean, the score is not representative of what we played last week. I just thought once it got past us, it became too difficult for us. What do we think about that defense?
Well, we're in bad shape in the secondary, I think, going into this game. I mean, I'm concerned we're not going to have Chestnut. He's going to be out with an injury. Ricky Rumpf, I believe, had a family member pass away. And, of course, we lost the heart and soul of our defense, Carl Joseph, in a practice incident. And, that's one of the better players in college football. So, those are some tough blows to absorb, and it's going to be up to the next guy in line to step up to the plate and come in there and play. So, it would be nice to have a little bit of a breather, but that's not the life we live in the Big 12 when we go from from Oklahoma to Oklahoma State to Baylor to the frying pan. It just doesn't get any easier for us. So hopefully, we can step up to the plate, play above our heads, slow this team down a little bit. But it's scary.
Yep.
Got to be really shorthanded on the back end of things, and that's where this team can burn you.
Right. And I guess the best way that you can combat something like this, and I'm kind of concerned about it because when we start bringing the house, we you know what I mean? That's the way we're going to kind of deal with it.
Right.
To help out that back end, we're going to probably start doing some stuff up front. We're going to be sending those backers, and they're going to be on the island for the most part. So, I mean, I would agree with you. You're kind of concerned about it, but then you put a lot of pressure on the defensive linemen to play better, and you put a lot of pressure on those linebackers to really step up when you're hurting on that back end. Gary, what do we got to do?
I don't have the answer to that, but what I'm going to keep going back to is hard-nosed football. Keep fighting. You're right. If we start to do a lot of stunting and we start doing a lot of blitzes, we put what I feel to be at this point the most vulnerable part of our defense. We put them at risk. And so, and especially now that we're losing guys back and forth. So we put them at risk, but what I'd like to see us do is we can afford to blitz a linebacker. We can afford to do some tackle in stunts or TNT stunts. We can afford to blitz a linebacker maybe two. Remember, we're playing at 3-3-5, so maybe we can bring someone out of secondary. We got a lot of guys that are free, that are just essentially standing in a zone. I think we should play more zone, a little less man. I don't think that our guys are they're ready to do that just yet. From what I saw in the Baylor game, high-level competition, one-on-one with wide receivers that have good skill. Right now, I just don't see that they're ready to do that. So I think if we just can do some stunning with our linemen and use a linebacker or two, or maybe a linebacker and a safety to bring some pressure, we can still keep enough people in the passing game that we should be able to at least compete.
Right. And guys, I just want to break that down real quick, just to talk about what he just mentioned in terms of what we play now. We play at 3-3-5. And for the most part, we've been doing a lot against Baylor, and we may do this against TCU. We run that cover zero. A lot of people call it cover zero, but it's really a man type of defense where you tag on to a specific player. What Gary's talking about is, for the most part, doing a zone type of defense where everybody guards an area. Linebackers will drop in certain areas. DBs will get a little bit more depth. They'll know if they're underneath coverage. They'll know if they'll have over-the-top coverage. So that's what he's talking about when he says zone coverage. When you are limited in capability, you try to get everybody to participate in the defense. So as he kind of mentioned, I'm kind of thinking the same thing. You do some sort of zoning and do a lot of stunning up front. But the bad thing about that D line with three linemen,
you're not going to fool too many offensive lines with the three-man front.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about you're talking about center, two guards, and a tackle against three people.
Right.
You can move around all you want. It's not going to.
It's an easy numbers game, right? 3 on 5, right?
You just kind of sit there like, so you're going to go that way, and you're going to come around this way. I mean, how do we get pressure up front if we have to stay in the zone?
Right.
Because of what we're lacking in the DP positions and the weapons that TCU has, we can't afford to just really kind of pull people in.
Well, they got to send that linebacker too. They got to have 4 rushing.
Yeah,
they got
got
to send
to.
My whole point is they're going to have to always keep a linebacker coming. But we got to see that front move.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
They're going to be bringing 4, but that front, I'd like to see that front.
That's right.
You know, if you bring a linebacker outside and you bring that outside guy inside, you're still good because you got contained.
Right.
And that DN folds inside, taking away your gaps. You know what I mean?
You might as well try something at this point in time. So I have to say I disagree with what you said earlier when you said the defense wasn't too bad. I thought 693 yards, that's pretty bad, man.
They take a knee at the end. 70.
So they may have had 700 yards total. So, I'd like to see something else happen.
Right,
go for it. Try something at this
right.
point. Go for broke.
I really believe that this quarterback will put up astronomical numbers if we can't pressure him. And Dana Holgerson has got to know that. So there has to be something put in that defensive package that's going to get to this guy.
We got after it. We pressured him last year. I think we only sacked him one time, but we were in his face a lot last year. We contained him for the most part. We have some history with this team. We should have beat him last year.
Yeah.
I guess shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Right.
Yeah, they kick a last-second field goal on us, but we held that team pretty much in check, probably as good as anybody that played that team last year.
I
So
agree.
and then we beat them at their place the year before. So, like I said, we got a puncher's chance any given Thursday. You never know what's going to happen.
Let me break right there because I want to give you one trivia question before we go to audience questions, right? Keep in mind that if you was paying attention, you may get this answer right. The Blue Bonnet Bowl, 1984. West Virginia, TCU. Who won that game? I got one right here.
West Virginia.
You're absolutely right, sir. You're absolutely right. You'll get one of these cozies, and we'll give you a ball.
We were big underdogs in that game, too.
Tell me about it. Alice, were you there?
Yeah, I was a sophomore in high school. I watched it on TV, but they had a big
He was a GA there.
Talk about it, Alex. Talk about it.
they had a big running back named Kenneth Davis, I think was their man, and we went down and beat him. I believe it was in Dallas, I think is where it was at. It was almost a de facto home game for them, so it was a big upset. We were coming off some disappointing losses that year. We had beaten Penn State and Boston College. You need Dixon here to talk about this.
right, 81.
It's getting foggy in here.
I'm sitting here thinking, I'm trying to remember how old I was.
I was breakdancing.
You were probably bored.
I don't think I was even concerned about football.
Yeah, that was a great upset. So hopefully we can make history repeat itself tomorrow.
Why not?
Absolutely. To Alice's point, it's been done before. So, guys, at this point, we're going to go to audience questions. Audience, we're here every week from 6 to 7. We're here at Sableton Station. If you don't catch me here, make sure you check me out at thedpost.com. So, audience, come on with your questions. We're waiting on your questions. What you got for me? Raise your hand.
Don't be
Or
shy.
we'll get the mic over to you. There we go. Gotta have a question. I was thinking David.
I've been looking at the people who pick the games, and they're saying we're going to beat TCU by a field goal.
That's a good point. So that was kind of a comment. The comment, and then we'll talk about it. Our good friend who is here, I don't think you missed I don't think you've missed a taping yet. You have not missed a
That
taping.
is a diehard.
Right, he is a diehard.
Woo, I love it.
Yeah, he always,
He does. He does a great job. He's a great fan. He said he's hearing that we can beat TCU by 3. Can we do that?
Yeah, we can do it. I firmly believe we can. Again, it's going to come down to a few things that we talked about, but I guess that's the fanatic in me. I believe that we can beat anybody. It's just it's a matter of going out there and executing and do it.
I'll take it.
He'll take it. I like that. By 3, Gary.
Man, can we do it? Science says an elephant can tie its tail to a daisy and hang over a cliff. You can do just about anything in life with a good imagination. Will we do it is going to be the question. We'll have to see at the end of it all, okay? But can we do it? Yes, I think we can.
You know what? That is worth repeating. Gary, go ahead and say that again.
Oh, that's classic. I'm going to use that.
Modern day science said elephant can tie its tail to a daisy and hang over a cliff. You can prove just about anything. You can say, in theory, you can do just about anything.
Woo.
Will it actually happen?
Yeah.
I don't know, and I do think we can beat this team. I do think I'm for us in every game. I really am, and I want us to win every game. I'm going to keep harping on competing. I want our team to compete.
Yeah.
I want to see jams at the line of scrimmage. You know, Coach Holmes used to tell us, if you're going to run that slant, and I know you're going to run the slant. Pat Green ran the slant in one-on-ones every single time. You knew he was going to do it, and he won most times. Coach Holmes would get mad with us and say, you know what he's going to do. Take the inside away from him and make him run the hump. Regardless, if you have to stand sideways to keep him from running that slant, make him go around you. That's what I mean for our team. If we know what they're going to do, we know how they're going to hand the ball off. We see what they can do against us. We know how we can compete against them. Just go ahead and make it harder for them. Make them come up with the big play. Make them come up with the big catch or the big run. Don't give it to them.
Right.
Don't let them have it. Go out there and compete, because that's what football is all about.
Yeah.
All Gary doing is asking you to have an elephant tie his tail to a daisy.
That's all we need.
That's all he's asking us to do, and we can do that. We can do that, as you mentioned. It can be proven. It can be proven. So, sir, that's a great comment. We got time for one or two more questions or comments. Any more questions?
No.
Yes, sir.
Do you think this is a better matchup this week than against Baylor last week
Good
for
question.
West Virginia?
The question is this a better matchup this week than it was against Baylor? We'll start with Alex.
Yeah, I think Baylor's a better football team from what I've seen than TCU is. And I think we have a better chance of being able to score with TCU, score on TCU than we did Baylor. I think Baylor has some fantastic defensive players. I don't know that they're a great defense, but they have some outstanding players on that defensive line. So, yeah, I see this as a more winnable game than the Baylor game was, and I think we'll play this team a little bit closer and have a better shot at winning the game.
I agree. What you got, Ed?
I agree. I think Baylor had some boogeymen on the defensive line that created a lot of pressure. I don't think that TCU really has the same type of defensive strengths as, say, Baylor does. I think that we can exploit that as long as our offensive line really plays a solid game, which I believe that they will. They've been getting better every week. And then, I just really believe a few key plays. You're going back to your experience when Dave Mayfield put that 260-pound running back on his behind. That's all it takes.
Right.
That turns the key, and the next thing you know, you're riding that all season. We just need it.
I disagree with the panel. I do not think this is a better matchup. I do not think this is an easier matchup. Do I think Baylor's the better team? Yes. But I don't think the matchup favors us or is any better than it was going into last week's game. And the reason I say that is because on offense, although we had some special players do some special things and come up with a lot of yards last week, one of the things that happened to us is that we called on a lot of our younger players. It's hard to get younger players to show up week in and week out. So we're asking some of these guys to do what they did last week for a second time, and not in the home environment, but away. We're also looking at injuries in the secondary, more injuries in the secondary against a quarterback that is doing very well, and against some receivers that are good athletes. So I don't think the matchup is favorable. I think we're right about the same spot that we were last week with Baylor, simply because some of the injuries and what it takes for a young player to play week in and week out. So I don't think it's a different matchup. I think it's right about the same.
Good points. Yeah, good points for sure.
I think because I just feel like we can play this. I believe we can play this team a lot better. I think offensively, if we connect more, I think the guys know what it feels like to play in Texas. I feel like the guys know what it feels like to play up under the spotlight. And we can execute just a little better on offense, we stand a better chance in this game. Because I truly believe the best player on this football team is the quarterback, Trayvon Boykin. We take Boykin, and we just make him throw the ball just a little slower, second guessing himself a little bit. And we take the approach that we did when we played Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl. If they can just muster up that type of energy going in there, I think we stand a better chance. Now, against Baylor, I was very surprised that we were able to score early on like we did. And there was, as I mentioned, there was some opportunity we just flat out missed on. So I think this is a better matchup for us because I don't think their defense is very good right now. In fact, I think their head coach doesn't believe that this is the best defense for them right now. So I would think that this is a better matchup without the injuries. I mean, obviously that's going to be a factor. I'm saying if we get our offense to execute, guys, if you lace your shoes up a little tighter, if you put a extra pair of gloves on and catch the balls that need to be caught, get up and down the field as you would if we were playing early on in the season, I think we do quite well against this game. I think Oklahoma State goes down there and play a very close game against them. I think that opportunity is there. We just need to seize the moment. Thank you, sir, for your question. Great question. Any more questions before we wrap it up? Guys, I want to thank you all for coming out. I certainly want to thank my panel here, Mr. Green, Mr. Shook, and Mr. Gary Thompson. Guys, we are here every week on Wednesday here at Saberton Station. We're here from 6 to 7. If you don't catch me here, make sure you check us out at thedepot.com. And always remember, if you got a question you don't want to ask it here, send us an email at inthehuddle@thedepot.com. Until next time, huddle up.
Good show, guys.
Good show.
Good deal.
JT said.